update. This one is the pool that's been drained. There's still a puddle left, but you know, I couldn't get to the bottom one, but eventually I'll get to it. So it's gonna be all that muck that's been drying up around there. I have to like go down there and scrape it off. The coping has been regrounded to get rid of the stain and the top white coating that was flaking off. And here is the part that is a little bit pretty labor intensive. Well, not labor intensive, it just takes a little bit more finessing to get this part. So essentially what I'm doing is putting a frame around the border. It's about a little like close to 4 inches above the surface here, and then drilling out some holes for the pipe, because there's 4 pipes coming in here, and then using one of those plastic poly containers, I basically cut out a piece that's close to like 5-6 inches, and then drilling with these bits into the concrete here and put some anchor screws. These plastic sheets turns out to be a lot better than trying to form with wood, because as you can see the way they bend and curve, they literally conform to the curvature of the pool border, which makes my life a whole lot easier, because you know, I end up with areas like this where the skimmer is, and then trying to frame around it is kind of difficult. So what I'll do is use another piece, go around here, and then use a heat gun. We're gonna heat the corners and then bend it, because that will allow it to shape around this area much easier. And that's essentially what we want to do. We want to keep it as simple as possible. Luckily these container pieces, they were just scrap from one of the mini bins that I got. So that's essentially how I'm going to be forming the area around here to put the concrete on. Furthermore, we did testing on the water here, and there doesn't seem to be any leakage. Well, most of the rowboats have been removed and leveled. Now I got a bunch of these wire like cages that I'm going to be cutting up and putting on top instead of just using rebar. I'll probably add some extra rebar for strength. It's just that I got these, you know, for free, so they're rather thick as well, galvanized and they're thick, so they will do the purpose of acting like a screen mesh, like a rebar mesh, and it will be more than sufficient for this area. That little column made out of cinder block has been removed here, and that's it. So once I form it up, lay the rebar mesh, I will be able to continue and call in a concrete truck and just let them pump it here, and then I'll level it out. So here's another view of those pipes coming down. Here is the next part of this update. So I started doing the framing on the coping border last time, as you can see right here, the plastic, and here's the part where I heated up that sheet and let it just hug around the border nicely. So I got this going all the way over to the other side now, even onto the other side as well, which we'll walk over there in a little bit. But let's take a step back and really look at the way I framed this part to kind of make sense. Okay, so got 2 blocks right there, 2 pieces of lumber which blocks the concrete from going out that way. We only want the concrete to go up just a little bit above the pipe on this side, because we want this part to be lower than the back side. And over here on this back side we have additional framing here, and you might be thinking, why am I framing this part against the wall? It doesn't make any sense. But I think if you try to visualize it, it's gonna make a lot more sense, and it's really a safety feature in the future. So if I had just put a flat pad right here, which is much easier, I could just put the concrete here and try to slope it down as much as I can towards the pond, which is great. But in the event that, let's say, something happens that you can't account for, what I did was I framed this up because I wanted to bring the concrete up a little bit onto this side, so it acts almost like a border on top of this pad right here, right? That way, if there's water that accidentally drips out or drains somewhere here, the border will help keep it from seeping down, because along this side right here, we don't know how well that is going to be sealed up when you put the concrete in. But with this border, essentially it's going to have a wall on the back of the pad, and this wall is a part of the construction of this pad and not the cinder block wall, because this cinder block wall is, you know, it's its own thing. I wanted to make my pad right here to be completely independent of any other walls. So it's gonna be all around this way as well. There we go. So the framing is basically a 2x3, and I got a piece of plank that's wedged against it, so the concrete will be pumped into here. So on this side it will be up as high as here, which is about what, 4 or 5 inches right here, and then this border is about maybe another 5-6 inches. It makes me feel safer that way. And I did this all around so that later on all this is going to be much higher, and then hopefully having that water wall is going to make my life easier down the road, so I don't have to worry about water dripping over or draining outside. Everything, if in the event that all of my system just fell for whatever reason, I can still pump the water into this area and it will just flow straight back into the pool right here. So we're gonna walk down here. I started cutting out these trellis cages and started putting down as much as I can. I found out that it was a lot easier to cut these things using a cheap $30 tool from Harbor Freight right here. This is a bolt cutter. It's a 36-inch bolt cutter, and it just snaps it like twig. So I did that, and I'm gonna start doing all around here. But you see this border right here goes all the way over this side and into this corner. I also, you know, wanted to guarantee that I have a frame around here. So think of this as like a half open basin right here. Okay, so all this, and so when the water comes down this way, when the water goes down from that end, it comes dripping down this way or flowing down this way. It's gonna come out here and it will be blocked off by this area. So this is the furthest the water will travel from the filter system, and it will simply slide down here. And when it slides down, it's gonna create like a current. And I didn't put the current down here on this side. I put the current here because I want the current to kind of sweep this whole area, and it's going to sweep it in a circular motion down into the bottom drain. If I put it on this area where the water comes down here, I think what happens is it will just go down here, straight down here, and then it will miss this whole area. So I wanted to sweep as much of the water up into here as possible, the shallowest part of the pond, and then drag everything down and pull it down towards the bottom drain. So I'm almost at the finishing touches here. Just gotta seal everything in along the line right here. So I'm gonna go along and caulk all of this area so the concrete doesn't go down. I choked off right here. You see it? Just using a simple piece of wood, block this off so we can pour concrete without things going down that way. But that's it. That's this whole back area. And yeah, it might take me a day to cut up all these things, but I'm pretty much at the point where I'm gonna call in the concrete truck next week and get it ready. So it won't be as messy as it looks like right now. I'm gonna clear everything up, and hopefully it's gonna look a lot nicer. Here's the other block off point right here. Yeah, so all this area needs to get caulked and sealed up. Between these two cracks right here, well, not cracks, but where the seam here, where the two pieces made up, I have to put some tape around it. And this could be done with something really simple like duct tape or whatever. Remember, this thing is strong enough to, because the concrete like the first few inches of concrete here is really not going to push this out much. You know, it's heavy, so it's pressing down. So as long as you have something solid like this, you don't have to worry about it bending over. I know most people will conventionally frame these things with lumber, and you know, this is a DIY project. I work with what I have, and so this is my method of doing it. So we're gonna see when I pump. If it fails, you'll see it here, but I can almost be certain that it won't fail. All right, so that's that right now. It looks really messy though, but we're at the bottom. Well, we're at the finishing stage of this conversion, and then all this will become a really nice clean area to just start putting those tanks right there. You see that? I got a bunch of tanks in the back, more big tanks under those liners, some growing trays, some plastic pallets. So I'm gonna put those all on here, and they're gonna give me a nice growing area for my aquaponics setup, and also my basically function as a filter, but you know, like repurposing it and doing something else besides just filtering for the pond. I want to grow some veggies as well. It'll be a lot easier than having to water things every day.